Hey everybody, clearing. Okay, today on the pre-shuffle, I was hearing I hid who I really am from you. And because I've got this interesting, no glasses, yeah, it seemed fitting. So we're just going to get into what have these masculines been experiencing and what's the backstory. So this deck is going to be what the masculines, well, I'll just say my prayer. So thank you, Divine Creator, for using me as a channel of only the highest, most beneficial information coming through. What can we see for the amazing, wonderful divine masculines that join me here and their divine feminines that join me here? What can we see for how these masculines have been perceiving things consciously, and then what they've been portraying in these connections, and then what is the energetic going on connected with those things? So if they have cloaked or masked or hidden who they really are, what is the energetic awareness that they had as contrasted by the mask, how they came across? What are the emotions that were being masked? What would they have said to you, divine feminines, about what they have been experiencing but not in alignment with? And what do the divine feminines need to know about what we're going to see here? That's a lot. I hope to keep it straight. Okay, what can we see? One more. The bouncy ball is deflating a little bit. The cat's being let out of the bag. Okay, so conscious mind about these connections. Where have these masculines been consciously at? Bravery. So they've been shaking in their boots at some times, and sometimes they're just exhilarated to live their highest authenticity. But when we're in the Seven of Wands, it's really a proving ground. We're trying to come into our own. Maybe the shoes are a little big. Maybe we've never been there before. Maybe we don't have a trail map or an instruction booklet, and we're doing our best, or we're winging it, where we don't have the answers. We don't have it figured all out. So yeah, they have been kind of like, I'm getting the impression that they've been hoping you don't notice that they don't really have some bearings to draw from when it comes to you, feminines. What is going on the energetic level? Multidimensional consciousness and holographic information. Wow, so it has really expanded their consciousness, because as they've been bravely going where no masculine has gone before, they're really tapping into a collective becoming. Like, they do feel like they're on the cutting edge. And so I'm just getting, sometimes when they zone out or, go ghost, it's because they're blown into some cosmic sort of download or awareness. But really, if they don't know what to say or how to articulate it, they've just kind of gone into this sense of wonder and spaciousness. What is the emotion in that? Doubt. I release the need to know all the answers. This is that no news is good news, but it's brave. They're hoping that, you'll get the hint that if they're not specifically saying certain boundaries, that you'll be able to kind of know that if they haven't updated you to the contrary since they last said something progressive, that they're not retracting it in their silence. I'm just getting this is for periods of time in the journey where they have gone it alone or been introverted, where they've worked on doubts, but they've seen these connections paralleling like the collective of humanity, and it's taken them aback, and they've realized that they don't have an example in their material realm. They don't have mentors that are telling them what to do. They're very much soul searching at these times when they're at their developmental edge. that this connection has brought out in them. What would they say? This love scares me in the inverse. So it's not that this love scares them, it's just so awesome. It's just so uncharted. It's like the unknown. I release the need to know all the answers. It's not that it scares them, it's just unfamiliar territory. And so, yeah, they've been out of their element. They may have very well given the impression that they're scared, but it's not really fear. It's more that awesome wonder. I'm getting the starry night sky, looking up, and you feel so small, right? What can we see for how they've been consciously, so they've masked the grandness that they have experienced in this. They've tried to minimize that cosmic thing that they've been experiencing by going quiet. It's almost like they have had moments where their breath has been taken away. And instead of try to put it into words, they've gone quiet. What can we see on the conscious mind about you, feminines? Okay, so at times they have kind of been at an impasse. They've been at a blockage where they've had to find their truth. You're a very powerful energy for your masculine. It's the sun and the moon. It's this very cosmic thing. And when there are two seemingly contrasting truths, yours and theirs, or the shared truth between the two of you and the status quo, there are so many juxtapositions these two crossed swords could represent. Whenever, we are talking about their conscious mind for you, feminines. So whenever there's been a direct impasse, say the feminines want more commitment and the masculines don't feel that's appropriate yet, they have not necessarily confronted or, yes, they've said certain things, but it's more like that breadcrumbing thing where it could look like they're stringing you along. It could look like they're biding time. It could be breadcrumbing. It's that they've wanted to find the unity. There's an eclipse here. So that's the consummation of the masculine and feminine, the sun and the moon. And so what they've been authentically desiring is some kind of a unified solution that doesn't pit the two of you against each other or at odds, but they've possibly had some funny ways of asking for that time to look at those things. What's going on energetically when these impasses have happened? Tranquility, patience, disillusion. So sometimes they've just wanted to give it time instead of directly adding insult to injury or making a big deal out of it. They've gone into this patience, tranquility, silence, instead of adding some kind of a karmic hamster wheel, petty, hashing it out, talking about feelings. Oh, that's a really interesting one because, how often when somebody says, can we talk about feelings? Is that really actually a good thing, right? It's usually somebody complaining about how their feelings have been hurt or they're not getting something from that other person. Now, when we're whole in ourselves, we really genuinely don't have a need to make the other person responsible for our well-being. We have healthy boundaries. We're good on our own. We're not trying to change anybody. So in karmic situations, we talk till we're blue in the face. In these connections, the masculines have, not wanted to cause an issue here. And so they've followed their higher guidance to step back and let things dissolve on their own without it having to be a confrontation. What's the emotion that's been going on? Okay, so an insecurity about failure. I understand that a mistake is only an opportunity to learn. So yeah, sometimes they feel like there have been polarizing moments, contrasting moments. And yeah, sometimes they have initiated those things, but they haven't intended it. And so it's almost like when they get a result they didn't desire, they take a step back so that it doesn't become a failure, it becomes an opportunity to learn. And when they step back, they've wanted to learn from it. So they've not expressed this to you, feminines, that this is what they're up to in the silence, that they have been, like, they've hoped that you've given them the benefit of the doubt, but they have not communicated how uncharted territory this is, how much they're learning from this connection. What would they say? Oh, we didn't get the advice. I'm not even going to do those. We're just going to do this, and then we'll pull some advice for the feminines at the end, because I totally forgot that deck. Oopsie. Anyways, okay. Ooh, X with you. So yeah, with these intimate connections, a lot of the impasses and perceived failures and things that seem to contradict the intimacy. It's not being about physical attraction, 11:11 I just saw a second ago, or whether or not they want to have intimate, physical, passionate exercises. But those intimate moments have coincided with these growth opportunities. And so, I mean, even the Holy Bible talks about taking a break from connections, from the physical intimacy and connections, in order to grow spiritually. So what I'm seeing here is these masculines have understood that, quite simply, if they were to go forward in the connections and spin like a karmic scenario, that it would damage the connections and it would eventually turn you and them off. So they've been protecting the possibility for pleasure in these connections and intimacy by stopping before these connections create damage in them. So part of the reason that the masculines take space, step back, do the internal processing, it's not because they're fundamentally broken and avoidant. It's because they are caring. So there are people who are narcissistic, who are avoidant, who damage by doing stonewalling and gaslighting and all of that. These divine masculines really haven't ever intended to do that. And if they have found themselves doing that, they have, shown consciousness about that. So please read the room and know I'm not talking about any toxic exes. I'm talking about actual divinely aligned partners here, or counterparts that you've been going through these journeys of experience where you're learning these things firsthand, the gnosis of it, rather than, reading it in a textbook or something. These journeys are bringing us all through the energetic cause and effect, to be sure, to be masterful. What have these masculines been experiencing on the heart space? More than friendship. So another thing that they haven't necessarily articulated, that they've masked. As we're seeing, they're not masking for sneaky, shady, deaky ways. They're masking because they're protecting, because they're not wanting to mislead. And they are picking their battles. They are being discerning, selective with how they navigate, even if there hasn't been clarity. Many divine feminines are still on the journey with their counterpart because they can understand and feel that there isn't malice in the actions or the inaction of their masculines. Okay, so what's been going on energetically while these masculines have been feeling more than friends? Gate of returning, entrance, death, rebirth, and passage. So these masculines have known that even when there are periods of solitude, separation, growth, independent growth, that they intend to come back around, that they are sensing the more than friend, they're trusting the connection. They haven't had to speak that out loud. If it's unfinished business, if it feels like there isn't closure, these masculines are letting that energy precede anything that they would have to spell out or articulate. This is another subtle way, I believe, that the masculines become aware of whether you feminines are their counterpart or not, is if you grow tired or become fickle or say screw them then and then head for the hills. On the heart space, as the masculines are integrating this more than friends thing, they're allowing each awareness of that, each layer of that to integrate with the intention of allowing the growth so that you can come back together stronger on each of these cycles. Just like you, feminines, you also take space when you feel it's appropriate, the kindest thing to do, or where you feel like you can just allow them to come to their own awarenesses. There are many times that each counterpart knows these truths on their heart and offers that grace, divinely guided grace. What is the emotion? Growth. I want to expand my consciousness and my awareness. Yeah, so every time we get a little bit more in love, we also don't want to lose ourselves into that person. And so we take this, it's like the inhale, the breath, the pulse in these connections. They have an energy of their own, an aliveness of their own. And so as these masculines have been integrating the depth at which they're falling in love, knowing they're going to come back around, they're really truly growing. And you matter. It's not because you don't matter. It's because you matter so much. You're so dear to them that they do this. What can we see for how the masculines have been experiencing their feminine? Yeah, very much an energetic 5D transference between the two. What's going on when the masculines are not talking about that energetic sharing? We have transcendence, prayerfulness, and serenity. So this really is like the serenity prayer, where we're each accountable for our own energy, and we each have the wisdom to understand where those sovereign thresholds are, the healthy boundaries, the proper way of looking at things that's honoring, respectful, accurate. And so these masculines on the heart space, you are such a pure mirror for them, feminines, that it really helps them come into their own and learn what they need to be accountable for, rather than the codependent templates where we enmesh because we haven't had an equal or honoring balance between people. There's been an overcompensating or a lack of contribution. It's all wonky. So these masculines have on the heart space been learning this fine calibration. That doesn't mean that they have been telling you about it. Their actions have been speaking louder than words. They've been showing you by when they lean in and when they step back. But also, it's not just that surface level thing. They're doing major things behind the scenes that they're not necessarily telling you. This is also navigating heart to heart, soul to soul, sight unseen at times, and really taking care of the obvious things, the elephants in the room, the bigger life choices, and acceptance. I'm learning to accept the things I cannot change. Exactly, the serenity prayer. So they are buckling down and taking personal accountability, whether or not you have talked to each other about certain milestones or where you're at with karma or balancing out your worthiness or anything that you're balancing out emotionally, mentally, or physically. This is about taking acceptance for the things we can change and really not getting overly involved or all up in somebody else's business on this journey. That isn't really our responsibility. And will you choose me in the inverse? So your person doesn't want to take no for an answer. Your person is basically putting their money where their mouth is, and they are just buckling down and doing the things that energetically they know to be good and right and true based on the shared awareness in these connections. The mirror that you offer them really finely shows them, finely tuned, a fine calibration of what they need to do and change and how they need to grow and balance out in their lives, because they don't want it to be a contest. They want to be your person. And so they're accepting that they can't change what you do. They can't change where you're at. All they can do is keep growing and working on what they have on their side of the energy, and trusting that when the time is right, you won't be able to say no to blending your lives, coming together as a unit. They already feel that you are a team in this process. What is the masculine's view of manifestation? Yeah, so they want to heal the original separation wound. They want to heal the abandonment wound. They don't want to perpetuate that. So they don't want to overly commit and under deliver. They want to very much keep coming into their highest potential, so that they don't have those insecurities, that they aren't making themselves proud. So when you're with a perfectly aligned counterpart, you know that when you're in your most authentic, high frequency potential, that is the perfect match for your counterpart, your true counterpart. And so it's not that you're letting your counterpart down or not. Literally, when you come into your own highest potential, that is the fullness of you that most honors and aligns with your divinely aligned counterpart. So yes, it is partially for these connections and for their divine feminine, but ultimately it's for their own fulfillment of who they're meant to be in this life. But it does go hand in hand with the right one. That's why you don't need to force anything with the wrong ones, because the right ones, if you just focus on yourself, you come into alignment with who you're meant to be. That happens to be the perfect match for who is really for you. What is the energy connected with this? Starseed awakening, cosmic heritage, and galactic remembrance. So yeah, the original separation wound is the distance between our consciousness, there's 2222, and our divinity, body and spirit. This is alignment, head and heart. This is coming back into alignment with the cosmos. And so energetically, it's this cosmic thing where all is right in the heavenlies, because we come into righteousness, we come into that impeccable alignment, we come into spiritual maturity, we anchor that into our daily life, we embody it. Emotions, trust. I accept that my inner voice will always guide me correctly. This is our own free will to do that inner work, to practice listening to our inner voice. But in the inverse like this, it's also higher guidance being transmitted, downloaded through our free will as well, through our asking. Asking, it is given. So these masculines are wanting to reconnect with their connection to source, to the divine. And it's not about trusting people externally. It's about trusting source and trusting themselves with how they are receiving that guidance, how they are interpreting that guidance, how they are making the changes in their lives regarding that guidance. And therefore they're coming into wholeness, so they can take or leave anything that can align with them or not align with them. This is where we don't put blind faith in people. Hurt people. We don't just, find a cute one and then demand they don't hurt us. They have to do the work. They have to come into alignment. They have to face their own shadow. They have to come clean. They have to align with higher guidance. We can't just point at someone and say, you do that. It's a journey. What would they say to their feminines? Be more selfish. Yeah, so they're understanding they really have to put themselves first. The oxygen mask analogy. They want you to really pay attention to what works for you, feminines. What makes your heart sing, what you enjoy. They want you to really focus on you and let them focus on them, and trust. Trust that when you come into alignment with source, only time will tell if you're meant to come into romantic connection. Most times on this journey, as we come more into alignment, we get those spiritual awarenesses, the signs, the synchronicities that say, yes, you are indeed on the right track. And a lot of times it points us in the right direction with the people that are on our heart, that we have a preference or inkling could be that person for us, but we never know. We never know when one sentence or one experience will happen that neutralizes it all. We don't know until we know, until we're in union, until we're in peace and coming into union with our counterpart or another counterpart one day, we just have to keep trusting the journey, trusting the process. So these masculines are saying, they're in non-attachment. They're going into surrender. They're going into connection to source. They want you to do the same, feminines. They don't want you to worry. They want this vote of confidence. They want both of you to be putting your faith and trust in the divine. They don't want it to be the pressure, the codependent sort of thing where we make the other person an idol, a replica of God. They become our be-all, end-all. That is not the way to do this. What are the actions the masculines? So how were they masking? When they say be more selfish, it's because they are aligning righteously. When they push you away because it's them, not you. This is what they're saying. Like they're really spiritual. They're really wanting both of you to be anchoring into higher guidance and not into each other. So yeah. I'm hearing, if you don't know that, feminines, then you're not understanding what your masculines mean when they want to cultivate spaciousness in these connections. What can we see for the masculines? How are they feeling with the actions they're wanting to take? So sometimes it's hard on them to go into separation. When they have to take a step back, they still have to work through the counterintuitive emotions that come up as a result of having to take one for the team and create some spaciousness. So they mask how difficult that is. They look very stoic, or they look like they're unbothered. Oh, I just heard that couldn't be further from the truth. A lot of times the feminines get into emotionality and limerence and they're not really being grounded and practical. And sometimes the masculines have to, or the feminines, you might have noticed at certain times on the journey, your inner masculine has to set a boundary or something. So there isn't a lot of complaining to each other when those things happen, and there's a lot of internal processing. So these masculines hide or diminish to you how difficult it is, how emotionally tender they are when they have to be apart from you. What is going on energetically when those motions come into the connection? Spiritual strength, virtue, and valor. So this is where they are learning to stand on their connection to source and not rely on your opinion, your needs, your fear, your acceptance, your approval. This is where, when they're guided to take a step back or to usher that in for your connection, they are relying on source to translate that to you. You should be going to your connection to source for understanding in all things, feminines. So when your masculines, when a divine masculine steps back, you will always be given confirmation, insight, awareness as to the wisdom that a divine masculine has needed to use to take that step back at that time in the connection. And if it is truly a divinely aligned dance you're in, the divine will be able to show you. If you go into meditation and prayer for that clarity, you will see why it's of benefit and why your masculine is wise. That doesn't mean it's easy. Our egos sometimes want to go headlong into enmeshed, lose ourselves and surrender to the bliss, the temptation of instant gratification or short-term payoff instead of the long-term benefit. And so those times when these masculines have had to put the brakes on for now so that it's an investment in what can be down the road, they have felt very tender. What has the emotion been with that? Relationships. I'm attracted to those people who serve my higher good. So a lot of times when they step back, they are needing to balance out for the higher good. So that may mean that they're needing to do an overhaul and release people, places, and things out of their lives that are a hindrance to this connection, which would ideally be the higher good, a highest good relationship. Or they may need to repair with family connections, parents, grandparents, children, things like that, other networks of friends. They may need to, if they're losing themselves or becoming imbalanced into these connections, other things may have been sliding by the wayside, and they have to focus on those for a while. But they're learning how to bring it all up together, how to elevate all aspects of their lives. But sometimes they would love to lose themselves into these connections, but it's premature. So they haven't quite told you how difficult that is, because they are in their activation when they do that. They're in their divine masculinity, the times they've had to do that. And so there is no purpose in lamenting about it. It's more beneficial to stay strong in doing what is right, good and right and true in those moments, and understanding the benefit rather than the short-term tenderness or struggle. And if you listen, feminines, whenever your masculines have done that, there will have been emotions connected. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's obvious that they're in struggle when they feel they have no choice but to step back. And sometimes they're very tender about the care they have, that it's not about you, that they feel they must do a step back. But what would they say? Yeah, I'm ready in the inverse. So this is a preparation. So either they step back when there's a speed wobble, and both of you may have both thought it was closer to being ready, or that there was a new level to experience, but then coming closer together, you realized it was premature. Or this can also mean in these periods of solitude and internal processing and growth, that it's preparation for this full-on, once and for all jump into commitment, getting to know each other, deepening the connection, fostering growth with the connection. It's a lot of heart work as well with all that green. What is the biggest challenge these masculines are aware of? Listening to higher guidance. Spirituality is the key. So their biggest challenge is continuing to get straight from source intel. So they may not tell you how spiritual they are, or how much they pray or meditate or, daydream or manifest. They may not be expressing that. They may have kept that quiet. They feel like it's very personal. They don't want to overstep your free will. If you were to be getting contrary or different intel than they are, they don't necessarily want you to cave and adhere to their intel. They want you to, if there's at all any kind of question of whether or not things would be a shared best interest at any step on the journey, then the masculines don't want to taint your perspective by telling you things that would sway you unduly. They want to stay in their own lane and yet still keep understanding, receiving higher guidance, and watching what is honestly there, rather than trying to manipulate things in a direction that they would like it to go. They don't want to push their will in a way that is overstepping sovereignty. So that's the challenge, is seeing what they're being guided with and getting those downloads, but not trespassing in these connections. Blue Star of Hope, Ascension, Surrender, Purification. So a lot of the divine intel they get is for their own purification, for their own ascension. And only time will tell if that brings them further into alignment with you. But it feels like these masculines are very much tasked with staying in their own lane, but also witnessing the times when these connections do kind of cross over and merge worlds. And as they become more and more aligned, it gradually brings in this union. So they watch that. What is the energy. Envy, I'm the same as everybody, but with different challenges. Yeah, so staying in their own lane, they know that they don't need to do the victim blame. They don't need to worry about the splinter in someone else's eye when they've got a plank in theirs kind of thing. Like, they really are tasked. This is the challenge, is really continuing to bring it back to first person for themselves, for their own spiritual journey. What would they say to you? It's a yes in this connection, but they need to do this work within themselves first, between them and God. And in time, this is like the sun will come out. I just heard the sun will come out tomorrow. So I feel like some of you will be getting some confirmation, some communication, some kind of a positive message from your masculines tomorrow. Like, from whenever you see this video, it does look like you're going to get something joyful tomorrow. What can we see for the solution? That these masculines are receiving progress. So as they get this divine intel, as they channel higher guidance, their worlds change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So this is like paradigm shift in a positive, hopeful direction. So this is what they don't tell you, is that they've got their popcorn looking at which way this is going to play out as well. And all they can do is their due diligence to download the instruction and then witness what happens as a result of them being divinely obedient every step of the way. Acceleration, stimulation, excitation. So when they are divinely obedient, things move faster, things move forward, things harmonize. What is the emotion with that? Balance. I bring a state of perfect harmony into my world, and I do so without judgment. So there's that flow, the balance. This is where they become accountable for their own energy. They don't lose themselves, and therefore they now know what is what and what is valuable to align with and what's not a fit, and they don't sweat it if it's not compatible or not aligned. They look for alignments, and this keeps them out of harm's way or out of misalignments. So if you've been worrying about karmic scenarios or your masculines being weak, maybe they are not in this divinely guided spiritual strength yet, but they are on that journey. And so don't get ahead of yourselves, feminines. If your masculine still is not understanding karmic scenarios or contrasting energies, don't harm yourself by getting ahead of yourself with expectations of where it should be at by now. Really radical surrender. Allow them to come through their own journey. Pray that they see the light. Give them an energetic vote of confidence, but don't make it as a rejection of you. What would they say? I'm obsessed with your body in the inverse. So a lot of times they start getting very attracted. They start getting very pulled towards you on a deep soul level. And it's deeper than just the physical attraction, that initial curiosity about whether it was just drawn together because of physical beauty or that thing. When these masculines come into alignment, they know it's more than skin deep. They feel a soul level pull to you, and it speeds up their knowing that you're actually very, very well suited for each other. What are these masculines not expressing? What's going to be the next theme in the near future? Doing the inner work. So they're drawing some correlations between many sectors of their lives right now. They are connecting the dots, wrapping things up. They are becoming masters of their realities, masters of their domain, puzzle masters. They're seeing how seemingly far-reaching things are very, very interconnected, because they are the common denominator. So they're starting to see that they influence all aspects of their reality, and that those aspects of their reality are all reflections of aspects of them. So they're not necessarily telling you how aware of that fact they are becoming, feminines. Temple of suspended endings, standstill, suspended animation, and holding space. So like this spider is like holding space in midst of their reality right now. And they've got all of these circumstances and considerations poised around them, and they're assessing all of it. So whatever this standstill, this spaciousness in the connections are right now, it's so these masculines can get their energetic bearings and see what they are accountable for and accept where things are at, so they can start moving things as specialists, as master manifestors in the directions that they know are righteous and of the highest potential, the greater good, the relationships that are for their greater good. They are beginning to take stock in all of these things that they have the ability to affect positive change with in their lives. What is the emotion here? Grief in the inverse. I understand that losing something is an opportunity to appreciate it. So they're losing their ego and they're appreciating the benefit of dropping fear. They're losing fear, and now they're appreciating everything that remains when the fear is gone. Because they're becoming more objective, because they're more able to look at what is really there. They're losing the fear. They're losing the competition, lack, loss, the ego. Yeah, so they've had some shakeups in their lives, reality checks, and they are tuning into what really matters. They're putting down the pretense. They're putting down these masks. What they say to the feminines, strength, ego in the inverse. So they're letting go of ego, exactly what I just said. So yeah, even that color match on the card. So they're putting down all of this ego. They're putting down the grief associated with those survival templates. I just saw 41:14. All right. Yeah, advice for the feminines watching this. What can we see for the DFs that have watched this? The devil's in the details. I'm just hearing literally let go and trust, feminines. All right. Many blessings. Bye for now.